You're reading the title of the book. What's the title of the book?
Wayside Stories from Wayside School.
What kind of stories from Wayside School? What kind of stories does it say on the title?
Wayside, sideways.
Sideways stories from Wayside School. Why do you think it says that? Sideways stories from Wayside School.
I don't know.
Remember what happened to the building at the beginning?
I forgot.
Remember how they were supposed to build the building? In one direction and then they
Sideways.
yeah, and then they built it.
Story that you read for us. It starts off.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
What's the title of it? Do you remember?
I don't know, but I remember what it's about.
What's it about?
It's about a woodman and his wife, and then the woman said that he been doing all the hard work, and the wife said that she been doing all the hard work. So they switched, because they want to see who was harder. And the woodman had to do the housework, and so he had to feed the cow and all that. And so the cow didn't have no grass to get, so he put him on top of the roof and then tied a string to him, and then put it down the chimney, and then he was on the chair. And then the cows fell down the chimney. That's all I remember.
Well, that's pretty good. We want to ask you more about it today because we're going to work with it today. And also, next year, when we come back to see you next year, we're going to have you read that story again because I want to show everybody how you read that story when we first met you in September and how you're reading it now. Okay?
I'd say that your understanding, your remembering of that story was very good. I want you to listen to another reader that we've all worked with. Dr. Goodman is, well, we've all listened to Dr. Goodman's work with this reader. And I want you to listen to what this reader said about the story that you both read. She also read The Man Who Kept House, which was the name of the story. And the reason why I want you to listen to it is the same reason that you listened to that other kid read The Stonecutter. I want you to tell me what you think of the kid's understanding. Did they understand the story? And here, the kid has just finished reading the story, and then the teacher who's sitting with the kid, her name is Betsy, asks her, now tell me everything you can remember about the story. Here's what she said.
What's your book? And now I'd like you to be able to tell me what the story was about in your words. There was this woodman, and he thought that he had harder work to do than his wife, so he went home and he told his wife, what have you been doing all day? And then his wife told him, and then he was going to have to clean all, wash everything in the house.
I'm going to stop it right there. Do you need to hear more for you to decide whether or not she understood the story?
Do you think she...
Would you like to hear more?
She understood it.
She understood it. Okay.
How do you know that?
She told me kind of most of it, more of it.
Mm-hmm.
It goes on for a little ways here.
See, she remembers it. She was going all the way through.
Yeah. Pretty much like you did the first time after you read it.
Were there some things that she said that you thought were right? Does it match what you think about the story, or is it different than what you think about the story?
It's different.
In what way?
I don't know.
But you think she
Are
had
the ideas the same, or are the language what's different and what's the same? Or how is it different?
I don't know.
Than what you... But how
She
does
said different things than I said.
Oh yeah, okay. But how do you know then that she understood the story?
It sounded just like the story, how the story was.
Okay, but just different than what you did. Do you think she's a good reader to be able to remember all that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that was one of the key questions that we were getting at.
And that's what we want you to think about, is whether this is a good reader or not.
So you think she was a good reader because you understood. Okay, I want you to listen to some of the things that Betsy did when she read. And tell me about what you think is going on here. The first places I wanted you to look at was line 201, right here. Could you read along right there?
Why would just, do you want to read it? Do you want to read that off first?
So the next morning, the wife went off to the forest. The husband stayed home and began to do his wife's work.
Okay, now listen to what this good reader did when she read it. If you want, you could even make little marks, since this erases all. That'll be okay.
Good tomorrow. So the next day, the wife went off.
What'd you catch? Want to hear it again? What's the first one that you wrote down?
Day and wild.
You heard wild? Interesting. Want to hear it again?
Listen again. Sometimes you have to listen to the whole sentence to really hear that.
Good tomorrow. So the next day, the wife went off to the forest. The husband stayed home and began to do his wife's job. He began.
Any other changes? Want to hear that part again?
Off to the forest. The husband stayed home and began to do his wife's job.
Job.
Okay. What do you think about what the reader did with the story there? How many changes did you hear?
2.
Okay.
So there were two miscues, right? Those are two miscues. One is a substitution of what for what? What did,
Morning. Instead of you said morning, you put day.
and the other one is a substitution of,
Job. She put job instead of work.
okay.
What do you think?
Tell us about those miscues.
They're both the same.
What do you mean by they're both the same?
They sound good. They're both.
They sound good in what? In what way?
Making sense?
Making sense of the story. Do they look alike?
No.
So can you read and have miscues that don't look like what's in the story?
Yeah.
Why?
Kind of, yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know.
Why is that good?
And it still tells you, still like, you still know the part of, you still know the story.
Okay.
Could you read that, maybe just the first sentence and read it like she read it and just see if it makes sense to you?
So the next day, the wife went off to the forest. Yeah.
Any change in meaning? Okay. How about the other one? Any change in meaning there?
The husband stayed home and began to do his wife's job. Yeah? No?
So those words mean the same, and the story means the same, and the sense is the same, and you've said all those things, right? And it sounds...
I'm going to have you listen to one more. Line number 319. I think it's on the next page, see?
I'll light a fire in the fireplace, and the porridge will be ready in a few minutes, just as the husband
That's
was.
fine, we're just going to look at this one sentence here, although actually we're only going to look at this line here, right? And you see what you hear, and you can put it in with very light pencil if you want to write it down.
And this reader didn't realize that she made this what we're gonna hear, did she?
Oh, you know what we should have talked about back here? Did she go back and self-correct those?
No,
Miscues?
she
We
left.
didn't talk about that, did we? Did she go back and self-correct those miscues? Do you think she should have? Should she have corrected those?
They will. It still makes sense.
Okay, so she didn't need to correct those. Now let's see what she does here.
Listen here.
And the boys will be ready in a class.
It's got a little, there we go.
Here, you can use this pencil. Is this going to be easier? Do you like that pencil?
I guess you heard a miscue.
Okay, what did she say?
Flash.
Okay, instead of?
A few minutes.
Okay.
Does
No.
she? Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry. So can you tell us about that miscue?
It's kind of the same. Still makes sense.
Why?
Because you can still understand the story.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Have you ever heard that expression? Something is gonna happen in a flash? I'll be there in a flash. What does that mean?
Or Superman, doesn't Superman change his clothes in a flash? Right? What does that mean?
Real fast.
Real fast.
He did something interesting here. Why don't you read that section there?
Miss Jules hit her head against the wall 5 times. How many times did I hit my head against the wall? She asked.
Do you remember that part?
Do you remember any miscues you made when you read that? Sometimes you remember your miscues even before you hear them.
I get the wrong answer.
Yeah.
Miss Jules hit her head against the wall 5 times. How many times did I hit my head against the wall? That's hand. Handy is the wall.
What happened in here?
I was saying hand instead of head.
Why do you think you did that?
Cause I don't know. They both kind of spelled the same way.
Okay. What else? Why else do you think you did that?
I don't know.
Think of a meaning level reason. You talked about how the words look. Think about the meaning. of
Does it
what's
make more
going on.
sense to say hand than head?
Mhm.
What do you think? And why?
Because sometimes they do instead of head.
Okay. You think it would be smarter to hit your hand or hit your head?
Hand.
Why?
Because it won't hurt your head.
Is that a good thing to happen, not to hurt your head?
Mhm.
Okay. You were hitting your hand 5 times on the table? Is
Just
that what you were doing? Listen again to what you did, because you did some, did you ever say head? See, that's what, they look alike, but listen to what you did, because I think you said head, and then you changed it to hand, which is so interesting.
We think it's marvelous. We think it's what a smart reader does. Listen.
Wrong answer. Miss Jules hit her head against the wall 5 times. How many times did I hit my head against the wall? That's head. Handy is the wall.
I said head and then hand.
Right, you knew it was head. You read it head. And then you decided, that's a silly thing. Why would anybody hit their head? Must be their hand. Is that what you were thinking, you think? Because who would want to hit their head against the wall? It's sort of a silly thing, especially for an adult teacher to do, don't you think? What do you think about that? So you think that was a good thing that you worked out, or a problem?
Good thing.
You know why?
That still makes sense.
What kind of strategies were you using?
Keep on going strategy?
That's good. You kept on going, but also, what were you doing while you kept on going? What were you doing in your head?
I don't know.
Were you thinking about this in some way? You don't think you were thinking? You weren't using your brain
How
thinking?
could a person who wasn't thinking say,
Yeah.
that's head, yeah, and then go back and change it to hand?
I don't know.
We think you were thinking. Good or not?
I don't know.
Say what you really believe.
Good.
And why was it good?
I don't know.
You're in an I don't know mood today. Last time we were together, you weren't saying I don't know so often, but today you're back to I don't know. You know, I don't know doesn't mean anything to me, so you have to say something else. Because I don't know what I don't know means. And I want you to tell me what it means. So why do you think that was a good thing? Or maybe you want to change your mind again and say it's not a good thing.
Not a good thing.
Why?
Because I wasn't thinking on what I was saying.
But you were thinking about what you were saying. Because you said to yourself, listen to the tape again, because what you said was, my head, and then afterwards you said, no, that has to be hand. You were thinking.
I get the wrong answer. Miss Jules hit her hand against the wall 5 times. How many times did I hit my head against the wall? That's head. Hand against the wall.
You said head, and then you said hand here, right?
Yeah.
And then you came here, you said head, and then you said, that's head. And then you said, hand against the wall. Because you decided as a reader that you thought maybe it would be better for her to hit her hand than her head. And I think that's a pretty smart thing to think about.
You also did something up here that was pretty smart too. Do you remember?
So I put wall and I went back up to here and I said against the wall 5 times.
What I heard was that you left out wall.
Wrong answer. Miss Jules hit her hand against the wall 5.
I didn't say wall. And so I went back and said against the wall.
Why do you think you went back?
Because it didn't make sense.
That's right. You are so good at that. If it doesn't make sense, what do?
Go back and fix. Go
If
back
it
and
makes
fix
sense, what do?
it. Keep on going.
And sometimes when you don't like what the author says, you change it to what you think is better. Can readers do that? You did it, and we believe
Betsy did it. Remember job for work?
Remember she said in a flash instead of in a few minutes?
She said the next day instead of the next morning? And you said she hit her, what, against the wall?
Hand. And then I said head.
And you knew it was head. You knew what it was. Okay? So we think your brain is doing a lot of good work when you read it. You also, I'll tell you another thing that you're doing. When we started reading, you were reading very slowly, and you stopped, and you're just reading along, You one more set of miscues here before we have you read something else.
Okay.
Silently to yourself. Hold it yourself.
Do I just read up to there and then go down there?
That's right. You got it.
All the children were went to race.
Okay, done. Do you remember what you said now? What did you say here when you checked?
Rope,
What?
rope,
Rope? Okay, and then what did you say here?
race.
And did you correct them?
Mhm.
Which, you corrected both of them?
Yeah.
Okay, now listen again and see what you did.
Well, all the children were went to race.
Did you correct this one? What was it?
I said went to race.
When to race, okay.
Go
And,
to race.
and then what did you do?
Mhm.
And what did you do after you said when to race? You corrected this one, and then what did you do?
Kept on going.
You kept on going. Okay, so you self-corrected this one, and then you left that one. So you used a self-correction strategy here, and that gave you enough sense to be able to say when to race. And tell me about race, and is that what's in the book, race?
Mm.
Is that what it says in it? Is that
No,
what's in the book?
recess.
Okay, how does race and recess fit? How are they alike?
The C sounds like an S.
Mm-hmm. Do they mean the same thing?
Mm.
Are they sort of like each other?
Yeah,
Why? How are they sort of like each other?
they both kind of spell the same.
Okay.
Except that right there's an A.
Okay, but what about meaning wise? Are they sort of like each other?
Kind of, yeah.
How?
Because when they're running they're kind of like racing.
Okay, and where can you do that? Running.
When you're coming out of the classroom,
Okay, and what would you be at?
in the playground.
Okay. All right. So now you kept going here, and let's see what happens by the time you get down here. Okay, see what you do. Do you remember what you did? Did you know what that was when you got down here? You think? Let's see what happens.
Good, I already know how to count, said Joe. Let me go to recess.
And what were you going to say?
Race.
And then what did you say to yourself in your head? All by-
Recess.
How did you know that?
Hmm?
How did you know to change it from ray to recess?
I was just looking.
Okay, you were looking over the camera, right. But you also knew something else. You were reading all this, right? And that may have given you a chance to begin to think, to wonder about this a little bit more. So when you keep going, sometimes it helps you get the things you need to get as you go through the story. Because when you come to the next page,
Fine, fine.
Joe, may I go to recess now?
What happened that time when you came across that word?
I just said recess.
how did you know recess here? You didn't have to say ray, you didn't have to say race, you just knew recess by now. How did you know that?
I've been reading the rest of it.
That's right. And that helped you think about what was going to happen in your brain. So, what do you think about your reading?
About reading.
Still a good reader.
You're still a good reader?
Mm-hmm.
Are you getting to be a better reader?
Yeah.
How come?
I'm reading better than I used to read.
I didn't know that. I'm sorry.
I'm reading more faster.
Mm-hmm. What strategies do you use to read?
Sounding out, keep on going. Putting different names.
How about thinking about what you're reading so that it makes sense? Is that a strategy that you use?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember when Betsy did Job for Work and Day for Morning? Did they look alike? Remember? They didn't look like the words in the text, so that she didn't need to sound out all the time. What's most important, sounding out loud.
Making sense.
That's right. Making sense is so important. That's the most, I think, we think that's the most important strategy. Always saying to yourself, and you do, you're saying that in your head even if you don't know it. I wonder if this makes sense. And then all of a sudden you say, oh boy, I know, that's recess.
Why don't you read that number 3 to yourself?
Tell us when you're finished reading it.
Okay.
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 But you counted the wrong way again. She's put 3 blocks on his desk. Count the blocks, Joe. Joe counted the blocks. 8,000, 8,000,003. 3 Miss Jules.
Said blocks.
Why do you suppose you did that?
They're both kind of spelled the same.
Is there another reason you would have said blocks instead of, what's the word in the text?
They both start being labeled and with S and a K.
And what else? Any other reason? Why didn't you say blocks
I don't know.
instead of books? Think about the story. What was he doing with the blocks?
He can count blocks.
Have you ever counted blocks in school?
Mm-hmm.
When? You count them now?
Kindergarten, no.
In kindergarten, and what else?
First grade, second grade, and that's all.
Because those are called manipulatives, aren't they? And you used to count blocks so that you learned how to add and subtract.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever count books? Not very often. So why did you say blocks instead of books?
So I never ever counted books.
And, so does blocks make sense? Can you count blocks as well as books? Okay.
Just like what Betsy did with Day for Morning. You made a change too.
And the change was fine, and you didn't, did you need to correct it?
Mm-mm.
Does it make any difference whether you count blocks or books in this story? Did you need to know it was a book? Okay.
Absolutely no.
Any of these books anywhere? These are books where the author knows a lot about science, but she also wants things to be fun for kids. So these are fun books about science. Have you seen them before? Remember them? And I'm going to read you the titles. Maybe you can read the title with me. And then you can choose which thing you want to read about. You can read one of these today. And you won't read the whole book. You just read part of it, and then maybe we'll read more later. We'll see how it works. So, What's the main, each one of these has the same name. Part of it is the same. What part is the same?
The magic school bus, the magic school bus, the magic school bus.
Right, but in each case, the magic school bus goes someplace else. In this one, the magic school bus is where?
At the waterworks.
And in this one, where's the magic school bus?
Inside the human body.
And in this one, where's the magic school bus?
Inside the earth.
Right, now which one do you think you'd like to read about first? The waterworks, the human body, or the earth?
The waterworks.
The waterworks? Okay. Now, we're going to watch this while you just take hold of that and you read it the way you would read it. You can read it out loud, but you read it. And then we'll probably not have you read the whole thing because this book takes a long time to read. Okay, what did you just say? I didn't
The
hear
magic
that.
school bus.
Let's see, go back. Let's see what else you can. The magic school bus. What
At
else?
the waterworks.
And do you know who it's by? Do you know who the author
By
is?
Yetta Cole.
Good, Joanna Cole. And
Illustrated by.
go ahead.
Illustrated by Brian. Bus Deacon.
Great. Do you know? You might want to just look at the page a little bit first, so you get a sense of what the page is about. And then we'll talk about, I think maybe next time we'll talk about the format of the book and stuff like that. So you start reading.
Our class really has bad luck this year. We got Miss Frizzle, the strangest teacher in the school. We don't mind Miss Frizzle's strange dress or her strange shoes. It's the way she acts that really gets us. Miss Frizzle makes us grow green mold on our pieces of bread. She makes us build clay models of garbage dumps, draw diagrams of plants and animals, and read 5 sentences science books a week.
Now, do me a favor before you turn over. Can you look back on the front page? Are there other things that you should be reading besides just this part, you think? Are there other things to read? Well, can you read them?
Okay. Listen, Arnold, it's learning to talk. Listen, Arnold, it's learning to talk. Does that mean we'll get an A? How mold grows by Anna Jane and Arnold. Download. Parts of a plant by green leaves make energy from sunlight, hand, leaf, sun. Roots get food and drinks from soil. Butterflies, beetles. Remember to trip to the waterworks tomorrow. Boring. Typical. I don't think our class go on trips to the zoo or even the circus. Guess where we went on our class trip to the waterworks. I don't think there are 10 interesting facts about water. Maybe four and a half. Water facts by Wanda. About 2.75 of your body is made up of water. And to get ready for the trip, Miss Frizzle made us spend a whole month in the library. We had to find out exactly how our cities get its water down to our last drop. We also had to collect 10 interesting facts about water. In the parking lot, the old school bus was waiting to our surprise. There was no bus driver. Instead, the Frizz herself was behind the wheel. Water facts 2 by Tim. Water is the only substance that is found in the form of a liquid, a solid, and a gas in nature. Solid, ice, gas, water vapor. Oh no, not the opposite dress. Octopus dress. Let's pretend we don't know her. At the end of the block, the bus went into a dark tunnel. When we came out, something amazing had happened. The bus looked a lot different. We looked different too. Everyone was wearing about a scuba diving outfit. Even Miss Frizzle. I want my mommy. Miss Frizzle was the only one who didn't seem to notice the change. She just drove on. In the middle of a bridge, the bus started.
Where does it go? Where does this go?
To rise into the air. It went right up into the cloud. Water facts 3 by Charlie. There is water in the air you are breathing. You can see it because you can't see it because it is in the form of an invisible gas called water vapor. When water evaporates, it changes from a liquid to a gas and rises into the air. I didn't know what that. We're going up. As you know, class, water is always evaporating from lakes, rivers, streams, and oceans. Arnold, are you paying attention? I know I should have stayed home today. I want my mommy. You said that already. Then Miss Frizzle did the weirdest thing ever. She told everybody to get out of the bus. The kids didn't want to go, but Frizzle threatened to give extra homework if we didn't. Some kids stuck their heads out of the cloud and looked down. There were mountains down there, and the cloud was going higher every minute. I'll take the homework. Help, we're shrinking. It was getting colder too all around us. Drops of water began to form, and as the drops got bigger, we got smaller. Help, we're shrinking. I was already small for my age. Water Facts 4 by Flurkey. Clouds are water. At the higher higher up you go, the colder the air is. When water vapor rises, the cold air makes the vapor from droplets which hang in the air as a mist. This is a cloud. Cool.
I think, let's stop there. You want to stop there, or you want to read another page? You decide.
I'll stay.
What?
I said I'll stay here. It's cold.
You'll stay?
You wanna keep reading?
You mean you want to keep reading? One more page?
Okay.
Okay.
I'll warn you, we're out of copies at the end of this one here.
So you're
this
gonna
will have
stop
to
there,
stop.
and then next week, you can read, next time we come, you can read the whole thing, okay? You like this book, huh? Okay, try this one.
Before long, each kid was the size of a raindrop. In fact, each kid was in a raindrop. The drop began to fall. Miss Frizzle's class was raining. Stay together, children. Eee. It's a good thing I brought my umbrella. We fell into a clear mountain stream and began flowing down the mountain side. Watch out for rocks, children. Ah, A relaxing day on the water. Water Facts 5 by Phil. There is exactly the same amount of water on Earth now as there was millions of years ago. The water keeps going around and around. It evaporates from lakes, rivers, and oceans, and forms clouds in the sky. Then it returns to Earth again as rain or snow. This process is called the water cycle.
Can you close that book now? This is a different, I mean, tell us what you read. Don't, it doesn't have to be, just tell us what you read, I'm sorry.
I read The Magic School Bus at the Waterworks.
Mm-hmm. And tell us about it now. What did you read about the Magic School Bus at the Waterworks?
The teacher was Miss Frederick, and she was very weird. The way that she acts, and the clothes that she dresses, and then she went in the bus, and they went on a field trip to Waterworks. So they went in a tunnel, and then they came out with diving suits on them. Then the bus was full of octopuses, and then Miss Frederick had it too. And then the water is evaporating, and then they're evaporating into the air, into the clouds with the water. And then it started raining, so they got smaller. I mean, the Miss Frederick was threatening them to get out of the bus because they didn't want to. They're too scared. She was threatening them that she'll give them more homework. And so they got out, and then two kids said that they will take the homework. And then they all shrunk. They shrank, and then they got in a bubble of rain, and then they all fell, and then they landed on the side of the mountain.
Did you tell a lot? What did you learn from this book?
Water evaporates.
Anything else that you remember? What did she say that the kids had to do?
Had to do an experiment, write about water.
Mm-hmm.
So they're gonna go on a trip to the waterworks.
And then what kinds of things did they write about water? You told me one thing, right?
Evaporating, solid, liquid, gas.
What about solid, liquid, gas? Mm-hmm.
It said solid was hard and the gas was the solid turned into the gas, and the gas would be evaporated up into the sky. That's all I remember.
Okay, what else, what other questions do we have?
What about the liquid? You said the solid and the gas. What about the liquid? What is liquid?
I don't know.
Do you ever have any liquid?
I don't know. Yeah?
Yeah. What is it then, if you have it?
It's kind of watery.
That's a good way to describe it.
Do you ever drink any liquid? What?
Water.
Anything else that you drink that's liquid?
I don't know.
Don't use, I don't know.
That doesn't work.
Try something else.
No.
Okay. That's better.
Could you talk about, did you notice different kinds of writing in here?
Mhm.
Talk about that. What'd you notice?
Like the kids are writing too,
Okay.
and so is the computer writing.
What is the computer writing?
Print.
Very much, didn't you? You like it better than the Wayside Stories?
Kinda, yeah.
Why? Why do you like this one better than Wayside Stories?
More funnier.
You think it's funnier?
Mm.
Okay. Okay, Zeke, this is yours.